Hello and welcome to another edition of the Paranormal Concept Show, exclusive to the PAUK radio network. I'm your host Paul Rook, and as always we are joined in the studio by the stupendous Kerry Greenaway and Richard Clements. Hello guys.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. How are you been this week?
I've been really well, yeah. I'm just taking down all my bunting and Union Jacks from outside the house.
Oh, lovely.
Oh, how boring.
Are you a royalist, Richard?
Oh yes. No, I've had a good little weekend. I went and saw Kerry on Friday night, so yeah, it was all good. And we've been watching bits of the Platinum Jubilee celebrations, and yeah, it was all good. Enjoyed
So
it.
you even spent a bit of time with the evil queen herself.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And this evil queen, we were doing the Ouija board, weren't we, Rich?
Yes, we sort of
Ooh.
got some interesting results on that, didn't we?
We
Do,
did.
do
Very
tell.
interesting results. We had several contacts, I would say, come
Yeah.
through. It was a little weird, in places. There's always that skepticism, isn't there, with the Ouija board?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We was working with somebody that we hadn't worked with before. So at one point I was thinking, you don't know, right? I don't want to accuse anybody of anything, but seriously. So I got him to shut his eyes
Awesome.
whilst we were doing it,
Yeah.
and words were still being spelled out. And we had, 4 or 5 different alleged spirits come through on the board.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's nothing really conclusive, but there are some interesting sort of bits and. Well, it's like the Ouija board. You really don't get anything definitive from them. I mean, it's either gobbledygook or bits and pieces, and we just got a few bits and pieces through, which, and whether it's definitive proof or not, you don't know. But you put it in the interesting basket.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there was one that came through right at the end that was shocked me a little
Mm-hmm.
with what was said. Yeah, but I did jump to an assumption of who that possibly might have been, which confirmation bias on the answers that you're getting,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
that's
So
right.
you have to be a bit careful because they didn't actually give any evidential evidence you could check. It was just like, I'm happy, I'm fine. You know what I mean? It was like
Yeah.
that kind of thing. And so asking the questions, it was like, have you got a message for so and so, and have you got a message for so and so? And it was like, no, 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 no. And I was like, you know what I mean? I'm sure you would have a message for at least one of the names on there. You know, not that I was able to pass that on, but anyway, it was very interesting what came through. And one even came through for my son, which I've yet to talk to him about.
Oh, right. That must have happened later after I left.
No,
No?
no.
Oh,
Oh no,
Richard's
it might have
forgot.
been actually, Richard. Yeah, actually, it might have
Yeah,
been.
I left
Thinking about it, it
about
was
half
later
10.
out the
Yeah.
evening. Yeah,
Oh,
later part
right.
of the evening. Which was, I was like, what? So I've got to check with him, but I'm pretty sure that it was crap what was said on the board.
Oh,
I'm
are you
pretty
gonna be a nanny?
no, it was somebody who reckoned that he owed him some money
Right.
Okay.
for some beers of all things, right?
Yeah.
Now bearing in mind my son's underage, so
Yeah.
and this person was supposed to be dead. So how does this
Yeah.
work? Do you know what I mean? Like, really?
That's gonna be an interesting one, isn't it?
That's an
That's a bit
interesting
interesting.
conversation, isn't it? Do you
Yeah.
know this name?
Do
Yeah,
you know
try
this
trying to
person?
get to the bottom of that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But
Oh
anyway,
dear.
so that's a conversation I've yet to have, and I tell you what, if that turns out to be true, I will be knocked off my box. I tell you, knocked off my box. But it is always interesting what you get through on a Ouija. I mean, obviously we opened and shut it properly, and we did what we needed to do with it. So I didn't feel, and I've had nothing nefarious happen in the house since, so that's a
Yeah.
good thing, right?
It's got to
Absolutely.
be, yeah.
Yeah. Definitely.
But yeah, generally not a bad week. Been a busy week as always. I
Mhm.
went to see the new Harry Potter movie.
Oh, there's Secrets of Dumbledore.
That's the one. I wasn't overly impressed.
Yeah, well.
There were funny bits in it.
Oh, absolutely. There was.
Don't get me wrong, there was funny bits in it, but the bits that were funny didn't come from the storyline, as it were, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I kind of just do one on Newt Salamander. Just do it on that. Don't worry about the
Yeah.
rest of it. Just concentrate on him. He's fine. He's funny in his own way.
Yeah, don't worry about Dumbledore.
Exactly. But anyway, never mind.
Yeah.
So there's some really good movies coming out.
There is, isn't there?
Absolutely brilliant
I'll
ones.
go to see one on Friday.
Mm.
Jurassic World.
I might try and get tickets for that myself
I think you should.
because I can't wait to see that movie. I
Yeah.
love it. And then my other son obviously wants to go and see Top Gun, so.
Oh, there's
Top
always
Gun
one, isn't
Maverick.
there?
I know, but I said if I'm taking one to one movie, I've got to take the other to the other movie, right? Anyway, shall we
Yeah.
do the show?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, let's get into it.
So what are we discussing tonight then?
So previously we've touched around the edges of mythology and folklore regarding snakes. They have a bad rap, really,
Yeah.
these days. You know, people don't like them. There's phobias about it, you know, and it's one of those things which is almost like a deep rooted kind of scenario for people. And when you're working spiritually, the snake is actually quite an integral part of that ethos. You know what I mean? That kind of working. So I thought we'd have a look at snakes and varying mythologies and folklore and stories regarding snakes, because they come up time and time again in all sorts of areas, right? Lots of different avenues
yeah.
of this.
They do, yeah.
Excuse me.
Ouroboros.
Well, we're going to get to the Ouroboros, but first of all, let's cope with let's deal with the ultimate snake story, which is obviously the story of Adam and Eve. It's the Christian Bible, and Adam and Eve were in the Garden of Eden, right, created by God, to be put in there, and they told that they could eat from any fruit from any of the trees except for the tree of good and evil. And he said, and God had said to them, "Don't do that. That's the one thing I ask of you, is don't do that. And if you do, you're going to, you're going to die." Right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is really where this comes from. Okay. Now, Eve, obviously, in the Bible, she's the first woman.
Yes. Technically, yeah.
Now, the Garden of Eden itself is this lush, amazing place. Now, the tree was put there so that they would overcome their temptation.
Yeah.
It was there to serve as a reminder to see if they would behave, they could overcome their internal temptation. So it's about disobedience. It's about proving to God that you can be obedient to him.
Yeah.
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 So they say, though, that in the future there will be a new and a better Eden, and this forbidden tree, which is basically the tree of life, okay, is what they're talking about with this, will have expanded in the new Eden. This is. I'd like to visit this new Eden when it comes to it.
Yeah, when we finally come round to it. Yeah,
it's probably the Eden Project in Cornwall.
Well, yeah, I've always wanted to go there. Actually,
I've been there. It's quite nice.
Yeah, and I would like to visit Kew Gardens as well. Actually, I haven't been there.
Kew.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, back to the Garden of Eden. Now they say that the tree was right in the middle, but it would have expanded. So there'll be a river that runs through it, and then the tree will grow on either side of the river. Now, this is, again, when we talk about the Bible, as we've learned from our lovely Matt Arnold, you can't look at it literally. You have to look at it like allegorically. Is that the...
Allegorically.
Allegorically, that's the word, Richard. Thank you.
Yeah, we go with that one.
Yeah. So they're saying that actually implies that everybody will have access and be welcome to eat their fill from the tree. But this tree is only supposed to like bear fruit like once a month, sorry, rather than once a year or biannually or whatever plants do these days, right? So it's like once a month that it will replenish itself. So this is the basis of the story. It all bases around this tree of life, or this tree that's in the middle of the Garden of Eden. And it's based on the basis of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden as God's creation, proving obedience to God and denying temptation. Okay, so that's where we get to. Now, they say that Satan came disguised as a snake and spoke to Eve to convince her to eat the fruit from the tree. Okay?
Yep.
Now, she told the serpent that she shouldn't eat it and that they would die if they did. But he kept on at her. He kept going at her and said, "Oh, go on, it'll be fine. If you eat it, you're going to be more like God." So Eve, being the naive, silly girl that she is, did actually take a bite of the fruit. Now, you've said this before, Paul, haven't you, about everybody assumes it's the apple.
Yeah, but it's more. I think it's more recognised. It could be a fig tree.
Yeah, the Bible doesn't actually state.
No, it
it
doesn't.
just states the fruit from the tree of good and evil, or
from the forbidden knowledge, isn't it?
Yeah, the tree of forbidden knowledge. It just says the fruit, and and the modern interpretation is it was an apple, but early Christians used to surmise that it was a fig, purely on the basis that Adam and Eve wore fig leaves to cover their sort of private areas.
Yeah.
Well, there's this assumption there, isn't it? It's a jump of assumption, but it, like you say, it doesn't state which fruit it was. It just says the fruit.
The fruit,
Yeah. So Adam did it. Eve did it. She bit the apple, and she then gave some to Adam to eat. She led him into temptation. Naughty little Eve. Now, immediately they knew that they had sinned, felt ashamed, and they tried to hide from God. Okay. Now the serpent, the snake, was more crafty than that, and he said, "I can't believe that he told you not to eat from the fruit. We must eat fruit from the trees, right? So why not that one?" And he convinced Eve, and that's the point of it, because he said that God knows that the minute you eat that, your eyes are going to be opened.
Yeah.
And you'll know good and evil. Whereas at the moment you only know good, and there's two sides to every coin kind of scenario. And this is how he convinced her to eat it. So she did. So she ate it, and she gave some to Adam. Now, when their eyes were opened, so they're now opened to both good and bad, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
They then realized they were naked, so they sewed fig leaves together to cover themselves. They realized that I can't understand why their natural form of being naked would then make them ashamed that they needed to cover themselves.
No, they must have known beforehand when it was a bit windy.
I don't think there was wind. Who knows? Anyway.
Well, there must have been. Otherwise, the plants wouldn't have been able to spread their seeds.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, see, so there's got to be wind, isn't there?
Well, there was shame. I think it's an expression for shame, isn't it? It's we nowadays we particularly modern times, the naked form is shameful.
Yeah.
Okay, and this is sort of where this belief comes from, that the naked form is shameful, when it shouldn't be, because that's basically what we're animals and that's what we've got, right?
Yeah.
But they covered themselves with fig leaves. Now, they heard God come into the garden, and so they hid from him amongst the trees. But he called out to them, and he said, "I heard you in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid." And he said, so God said, "Who told you you were naked?" And they said, "Oh, you've eaten from the tree, haven't you?" Basically.
Busted.
then the man threw the woman under the bus and said, the woman you put here with me, she gave me some fruit from the trees and I ate it. We don't have to throw Eve under the bus, mate.
Yeah,
And
go
so
for
then
it.
God turned to the woman and said, what is this you have done? And she turned around to him and she said, well, you know, it was the snake. And then, you know, the God said to the snake, right, well, because you've done this, you are now cursed, right?
Mm.
Above all other livestock and wild animals, you will crawl on your belly and you will eat dust all the days of your life.
Yeah.
And that's how come the snake is crawling on his belly. So, which kind
Yeah.
of indicates he had legs before, right?
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it does. Yeah.
So maybe it wasn't the snake. Maybe it was, I don't know, a lizard. Or
Maybe it was a
something.
lizard, yeah, before his legs fell off.
And then he said to the woman, to Eve, I will make your pains in childbearing very severe. With painful labor, you will give birth to children.
Yeah.
Your desire will be for your husband, and he will rule over you. Right?
Mhm.
Which
Yeah.
is why women are so desperate for men. Sorry. And to Adam, he said, well, because you listened to your wife and ate the fruit, which I told you not to do, you are cursed to the ground. Because of you, you will have to toil at the ground and eat the food from it for the rest of your days. I.e., you ain't getting a free ride anymore. Yours is hard work for the rest of your life, right? So you will have to work for your food now forever. And then also, it was from dust you are, and to dust you will return.
Right.
And that's where
Yeah.
from ashes to ashes, dust to dust comes from.
Yeah.
Now, he then made garments of skin for Adam and his wife and said, the man has now become like one of us, knowing good and evil. He must not be allowed to reach out his hand and take also from the tree of life and eat and live forever. And then they banished them from the Garden of Eden. And then after that, he, on the east side of the Garden of Eden, he placed a cherubim and a flaming sword to guard the tree of life.
Okay.
Okay. So, going back to the snake factor in this,
Mhm.
the snake is also said to have been Lilith.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, Lilith.
Lilith. Now, this is the bit the Bible doesn't cover.
No,
Lilith was allegedly Adam's first wife. She was created at exactly the same time and she was equal to him. So you had two equals.
Yeah.
Right. But she kind of was, there was a control dominant thing going on. And she kind of liked to have her equality celebrated.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
Adam wasn't liking that too much. So he complained to God that she wasn't submissive enough.
Mhm.
Okay, so then God banished Lilith, got in Eve. So it
Yeah.
says that the snake was actually Lilith in disguise to come in to sway Eve to the evil
Right.
side,
Yeah.
evil side. But she also ties in to this Succubah mythology as well. You know, this nighttime Succubah mythology that goes on with her. She's linked very much with snakes and the subconscious and the dream realms and that kind of thing. So she's been suppressed down. So she's like the ultimate feminist who has been suppressed down.
Yeah.
Okay.
So whatever way you look at it, all right, Richard, we could have had an easy life if it weren't for women.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Well, that's kind of what you mean think, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Kind of what you think. And us women think you lot are really quite weak-willed, really.
To
no
be fair, if
no
you
matter
kept
how
the
you
hand,
dress yourself
if
up.
women kept the hands off their forbidden fruit, we would have been all fine. Everyone would have been all right. But
Hunky
Nothing wrong with a
dory.
bit of forbidden
yeah,
fruit, I tell you.
but because she wanted a taste of the whatever it was, the fig, you know, we suffer. We all suffer.
We certainly do. We certainly do. Now, going back to Lilith being closely linked to this symbology of the serpent, it doesn't state this in the Bible. This is like sort of like beyond the Bible. This is where this comes from. Now, when I talked about this the other week, I believe, where we talk about the energy rising up from your kundalini right up through to the base of your neck, which is where all your nerve endings are, right? And they call this the reptilian brainstem. Okay, so it's just below, it's just sort of like on your throat area at the back, right? Which is basically where the nerve endings hit, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's where the brain stem comes down.
Okay, so this is why she then gets linked in with vampires, because of that area on the neck.
Oh, right.
Okay, so, and this is how come it links into the succubus and, you know, that side of it.
Yeah.
Right, so in the Kabbalah, the apple, which is what people say was the forbidden fruit, represents the da'at. Now, this operates on 2 levels: the higher level, known as the da'at elyon, which is higher knowledge, or the da'at hana alam, the hidden knowledge. Okay, so this is the subconscious, the dream realm that they're talking about, they're referring to. Okay, now in that dream realm, in that state, we have lots of other things that come in. So we have things like, you know, we talk about the hypnagogic state. Yeah. This is where this sits, this higher knowledge, this accessibility of accessing that. And it's not always a pleasant thing. Now, when we talk about the hypnagogic state, it is a state of consciousness, but it's also sort of like that crossover realm between the onset of sleep. So it's almost a liminal place within your brain.
I'm sure everyone must have experienced it when you jerk yourself awake. You know, you feel like you're dropping off to sleep, and then you know you suddenly jerk. I mean, that is you sort of entering your hypnagogic state.
That's right. And it's that transitional state from sleep to wakefulness. Okay. Now, when you're in that state, you get there are various mental phenomenons that can happen. They say that this is where your lucid dreaming happens.
Yeah.
Where you're half awake, half asleep, so it feels really real. Yeah. Hallucinations can happen. And sleep paralysis.
Yeah.
Right, now sleep paralysis we've talked about before, which is where you feel that there's somebody in the room.
Yeah, and it's quite common as well, isn't it?
It is. But in this particular state, your belief system, your beliefs, they reflect back at you. So when you're having these types of dreams and, you know, this, not dreams, but this type of state, this is where your beliefs reflect back on you, which is why you've seen a evolution, shall we say, in the old hag syndrome, which is sleep paralysis.
Yeah.
Because that's our beliefs.
I believe in jelly babies, so when I get into that state, I see giant jelly baby in a bed.
Oh, excuse me, sorry. Now, Carl Jung's School of Analytical Psychology, and this is part of his theory of the collective unconscious, he described the anima and the animus. Right? So the animus is the unconscious masculine side of a woman, and the anima is the unconscious feminine side of a man.
Right.
Right. So that goes into your personal psyche.
Yeah.
And he said basically those two things, the anima and the animus, are 2 primary anthropomorphic archetypes of the unconscious mind.
Ooh, well done saying that.
I know, right? I'm actually quite impressed with myself.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to attempt to explain what those are. But basically they take the shape of, in your brain you have like archetypes that step forward, right? We've talked about this before with Andy regarding the archetypal types that come forward. Go check out the show of the dream interpretation show we did, because he goes into that a lot more, about these archetypes that are deep within your subconscious, and they take the form of something, we give them a you know, we personalize them basically. These archetypal types, and they appear.
We give them a form.
That's it.
Yeah.
In our unconscious mind. So he says that these 2 forces, these masculine and feminine, deep, you know, the other side to us, take these forms, and they are inferior of the shadow archetypes. He believed that they were abstract symbols, right? set to formulate the archetype of the self. That's how it's explained.
Okay.
And that's why when you're in this middle state, this sleep paralysis, this transitional phase between sleep and awake, that the form of those is what you will encounter in your hallucination, sleep paralysis, or lucid dreaming.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, Al Chen at the University of Waterloo's Department of Psychology says that the hypnagogic or hypnopompic hallucinations that particularly like these sorts of belief concerning, like we talked about the evolution, didn't we, of our belief systems reflecting back in this state.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And he said that this is because we have evolved and how our culture around us has evolved and our belief systems have evolved, that things like alien abductions come into this. We've got alternate realities, other creatures, different types of creatures come through.
Mhm.
Yeah. Now, it is not a quick. It's not a quick thing. Sorry, it is a quick thing, but it feels like it goes on longer.
Right.
But because
Okay.
it's primal, because it comes from deep within your subconscious, it feels threatening or malevolent or evil. So that's why when you're in that state, you're very vulnerable
Yeah.
in that state. And you've got this primal rising up from your deep, deep subconscious level coming forward. And that's why the sense of dread and terror is very, very common. He said that 40% of the population has had this kind of experience.
Yeah. I know it is quite common.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, it is incredibly common. Now, the paralysis is actually caused by the release of hormones during the rapid eye movement state of dreams. Okay, it paralyzes the body, stops it from acting out your dream.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it does. But as the hormones gradually start to, you've had the rest, you need to wake up. So the hormones then start drifting off, they dissipate.
Yeah.
The dream ends, you wake up, right?
Yeah.
However, the hormones are still suppressing that motor function, that body
Mhm.
movement, but your brain is actually awake. So the brain is actually trying to find a reason for why you're still paralyzed
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
and invents deep from your psychology this evil presence or entity. So the incubus and succubus comes from that place, and it will take the form of this deep archetype that comes from your primal inner feminine or inner masculine, depending on where you're at with it, really, and forms into a belief of a deep set archetypal type.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is why you might get an alien abduction experience at that point in time, or an old hag, or I
A
don't
jelly
know,
baby.
or a man standing over your bed, or a woman.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Something.
We
like
see
that.
that. We see that demonstrated in Ghostbusters with the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
Yeah, well, no, he's told not to think of anything, isn't he?
Yeah, but it's the same sort of thing, though, isn't it?
It takes the form of
Yeah.
what you, Right, now Lilith is of the dream.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she's become one of these deep set archetypal types, was supposed to be where she is. So you've got the dual. Eve is the waking world,
hmm
whereas Lilith is of the dream.
Right. I
So you've
see.
got this
Yeah.
Yin and yang
balance.
going on.
Exactly, you've got this going on. So in the reality, it's light, isn't it? And love and light, and then you've
Good
got the
and
dark.
evil. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good and evil. Yeah.
Okay, so when the dreamer conjures a succubus, they say conjures a succubus, it's part of the sleep paralysis. What you're doing is, in your dream reality, Lilith is the conjured succubus that will come through into the reality of your experience.
Yeah.
So if you have suppressed desires in your subconscious of your belief system, you're going to manifest that into the physical realm.
hmm
And a lot of this comes down to sex.
Yes, always there, isn't it? When you talk psychology.
Unfortunately, yes. Now, when we talk about Freud, he always said that the snakes in dreams represented, or a fear of snakes, actually represents your something to do with your penis.
Right.
So that would be your masculine.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, Jung took it a step further and took it into archetypal types, whereas Freud was just a little bit more like, yeah, you're suppressed sexually and you just want a bit of whatnot.
Yeah. A bit of how's your father, yeah.
Uh-huh. Okay, so that's the Adam and Eve, Lilith kind of connection with snakes.
Yeah.
Now, the other one, which is really quite prevalent particularly in our culture over here in the UK, or Ireland, should I say, would be good old St. Patrick.
Yeah, he didn't like snakes, did he?
No, he didn't. Now, St. Patrick lived in the 5th century and he is the patron saint of Ireland. He was born in Roman Britain. He was kidnapped and brought to Ireland as a slave at the age of 16. He escaped, returned to Ireland, and was credited with bringing Christianity to its people.
Yeah.
Woohoo! Good old St. Patrick. Now, he has a huge mythology surrounding him. The most well-known would be the Holy Trinity, the three-leaf clover.
Yeah.
Yep.
He explained the Holy Trinity as the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, using the three leaves of the Irish clover, the shamrock.
Yeah.
Okay, now, when we talk fae lore or fairy lore, the shamrock becomes incredibly prevalent. Okay, which is why one of the reasons the four-leaf clover is incredibly lucky.
Yeah.
Okay, which was rare. It's an anomaly within the shamrock itself.
To be fair,
Nowadays, you can buy a four-leaf clover.
I would say I've looked for them. They're incredibly rare.
Yeah, they are in the plant itself. They are like you know, but now you can buy the plant, so done really. But if when you talk failure, the Irish is incredibly potent. The Irish belief systems are incredibly potent. Now the shamrock, if you make a potion with shamrock leaves, and you then rub that potion on your eyelid, you're supposed to be able to see your way through the fairy world.
Oh, right, yeah. Well, the Irish have a very strong connection to the fae, don't they?
They do. They do.
Isn't there some sort of stone or rock? If it's got a hole in the middle, you can look through it and see the fairy world as well.
It's a hag. That's called a hag rock.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It is. Yeah. It's called a
Cool.
hag rock. And the
See, I've heard of
reason,
them.
yeah, but then again, you would have to use the shamrock potion to see the fae. If you just look through it, then you don't see anything. It's about perspective. But you have to use the shamrock potion to do it. Be careful out there, folks. Don't want people making shamrock potions and blinding themselves with it, which I doubt would happen, but it could cause irritation to your eyes, so don't do it. But yeah, it's tied into that mythology that you can see the fairy world through a hag rock, which is a natural formed rock with a hole in the middle.
Yeah.
You find them; they're quite common actually, but I think the belief system more is to do with river hags, hag rocks, than they are the ones you find on the beach. But people use both now; it's interchangeable now.
Yeah.
Now, St. Patrick was obviously alleged to have rid Ireland of snakes during the 5th century. Okay, so basically he was doing a 40-day fast, following Jesus's footsteps of 40 days in the desert.
Yeah.
So he was doing a 40-day fast. How do people do 40-day fasts? I'm starving after an hour or two.
I say I couldn't do 40 minutes, let alone
a 40-day fast. Yeah.
I know. All I can think of is it's similar to, because they do that in one of the religions, don't they? They have a fasting.
They do it.
Ramadan.
It's Ramadan, but they eat they fast during daylight hours and eat in the evening.
In the dark, that's it.
Oh, I could do that.
Which I think,
more feasible.
Referring to that, yeah.
Very true, right? And it's supposed to be incredibly good for the body.
Yeah.
Fasting is supposed to be really good for the body. It's doing me wonders at the moment. Losing weight left, right, and centre. 2 dress sizes down, everybody.
True
Needed
story.
needed to lose some. Yeah, needed to lose some weight. Now, is it true? Did St. Patrick banish snakes from the Emerald Isle? And is it Golden Isle? The Emerald Isle. It is an unlikely tale. It is one of the few places in the world that does not have snakes. Anyway, New Zealand is another one. Iceland, Greenland, and the Antarctic.
To be fair, yeah, I mean, St. Patrick got rid of them, so there ain't going to be any in there.
Well, Nigel Monaghan. Well, he's the keeper at the Natural History at the National Museum of Ireland in Dublin. Told the National Geographical. Now, we're just going to call him Nigel because I can't do the last name very well. He's gone through the collection, should I say, not his personal collection, but the collection of fossils and other things. There is no evidence of snakes ever existing in Ireland.
Right.
Like going back.
Okay.
So if there was no snakes in Ireland to start with, then how could St. Patrick have banished them because there wasn't any?
Well, it does mean to say that he didn't, because the fact that he got rid of them proves there's none in the country. Because he's got rid of them, obviously.
Okay, well, they reckon that the snakes likely couldn't reach Ireland. They point to the most recent ice age, which kept the island too cold for reptiles until about 10,000 years ago. And then after the ice age, the sea might well have kept snakes away.
Yeah. I'm sure there's some geological reason why.
It's more like yeah.
And that sounds as good as any.
Now, they said that once the ice caps and woolly mammoths retreated northward, snakes returned to northern and western Europe, and they did spread as far as the Arctic circles, but they're still not in Ireland, which is only if you buy one, I suppose, and have one as a pet.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm sure
there
there's
might be like
plenty
the
of
odd
snakes in there.
one, that's got over. Now, there was a land bridge to main Europe about 6,500 years ago that was colonised by 3 snake species, the venomous adder, the grass snake, and the smooth snake. Okay, but that link to Britain was cut about 2,000 years ago. Now, do you remember the McCall saga, the 2 giants?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the bridge that they're talking about.
Right.
Yeah, the Giant's Causeway, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. There's another one in Scotland as well, and that was supposed to, that was the land bridge basically, and that got destroyed. And so there's a whole folklore mythology that surrounds that, which I'm sure we've gone into on a previous show.
Yeah, well, I've written a blog on it as well. I'm not sure if the blog's still up or if it's in the book.
I think it's in the book. I think that's one of the first ones. Now, that was basically caused by the seas swelling because of the melting glaciers. Right, so the animals that reached Ireland before that sea became impassable were brown bears, wild boars, lynx, but he reckons the snakes never made it. And he actually says that
it's because they were on their bellies.
Yeah, it's a bit hard to wriggle on the old rock, isn't it? But snake populations are very slow to colonise new areas. They don't travel well.
No.
In that respect. So he said the timing just wasn't right for cold-blooded reptiles to go that far, to expand, particularly when the weather wasn't particularly clement. It was cold. Okay, so St. Patrick couldn't have banished snakes from Ireland because there simply wasn't any. It wasn't clement enough for them.
Maybe he just did it a different way rather than slaying them. Maybe he just found a snake and said, "Where are you going?" And they said, "Ireland." So, "Oh, you don't want to go there; it's too cold."
You never know.
Exactly.
Now, they do have lizards, though.
Newts and things like that.
Well, they have the common or viviparous lizard. It's the only native reptile. And he says it must have arrived within the last 10,000 years because pre that date, there's no evidence of them either.
Yeah. I should imagine it'd be a pet of someone's and
possibly, yeah. I don't know. but it's the only native one. So they say that the story with St. Patrick and the snakes is again allegorical. I remembered. Woohoo!
Wow.
I know, learning.
That's
So,
2 words you've done there.
I know, I'm getting good at this.
You are.
After 10 years of podcasting, I'm finally managing to say words. Jeepers, what's going on in the world?
Congratulations.
Woohoo! Now, serpents are symbols of evil, right? In the Judeo-Christian tradition, the Bible
Yep.
just talks about it, for God's sakes, right? And he says that, obviously the snake was part of the reason of Adam and Eve's fall from grace.
Yep.
Okay, so basically, that's a dramatization of St. Patrick getting rid of all the snakes. He's not actually talking about physical snakes. He's actually talking about heathens, heathen practice.
Right.
Against,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. So the eradication of that snake factor, the heathen factor, is just a metaphor for his basically bringing Christianity and changing Ireland into this belief system of Christianity and that influence.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense.
They do have a slow worm over there. That is a non-native species of legless lizard, very often mistaken for a snake.
Yeah, we used to collect them at school. They used to
So
be
did
down
we.
and they used to be down the bottom of the playing field. It was a little bit sort of marshy down there, and there was loads of grass snakes down there.
We used to swap them because they all had different markings on them. So we
Yeah.
swapped them like marbles. It was like, oh, I like that one. I'll have that one. You can have my one.
I've only ever seen one, and it was in my garden.
Oh, I've seen loads.
No, I've only ever seen one on my travels. I've seen snakes, but not actually
Yeah.
a slow worm. I've seen one, and that was going across my garden. I was like, oh my God, there's a slow worm in the garden. Anyway, now, the slow worms were first recorded in the early 1970s and thought it was deliberately introduced into the Western Island in the 60s. It doesn't appear to have spread beyond the limestone region of County Clare.
Right.
Okay. Now, they say that in the future, genuine Irish snakes are a possibility because through pets being released by their owners,
Yeah.
and like you said about colonization from snakes, they're very slow to do that. They take their time.
Yeah, and I don't blame them if it's cold.
Oh,
You
neither do
don't,
I.
you don't jump head first into a cold swimming pool, do you? You dip your toe in first.
They say though it would be a huge risk to the natural fauna and flora of the island, though of Ireland.
Island of Ireland.
Yeah, the island of Ireland, because no matter how much you don't think it will affect things, it really could. I mean, in I think it was Guam, the brown tree snake was introduced over there or got over there somehow, and that's actually wreaked havoc.
Right.
Well, it's the same as Australia, wasn't it? Isn't it frogs? They've got issues with frogs over there, haven't they?
Got issues with
Bullfrog, is it?
up in Queensland. Yeah.
And that was brought over by someone that flew into the country and let it out. And
Well, yeah, Australia's got loads of indigenous animals. I mean, rats, mice. They have mice plagues, and when they have mice plagues, they are, I've actually seen footage of them, and
I have.
Yeah, they are quite dramatic things to witness.
Yeah, there was a guy. He lifted up a bit of corrugated metal on the floor, and there must have been about 10 billion mice underneath it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could deal with one, not
There's
hundreds of them though.
billions of them.
Billions. Yeah, I've seen the like it's a plague, isn't it?
Yeah.
And they go through the the grain stores.
That's why they're so tight now on bringing food
Stuff in.
things and seeds and
Because it affects the country so badly.
it does.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And since all the wildfires, they've had a massive problem with spiders as well.
Yeah. But they can keep them. That's fine.
We don't mind you keeping them Australia. So anyway, I found that quite interesting about the, like historical facts trying to back up a legend, and it doesn't back up at all. But if you look at it allegorically,
it's just misinterpretation, isn't it?
which again we've come across time and time again in regards to the Bible and the saints and things, miracles and things like that. So but we learnt that lesson from Matt Arnold, didn't we? Which is just brilliant. Okay, so let's have a look at another quick one. This is going to be a quickie before we break. Jormungand is pronounced Jormungand, otherwise known as the Great Beast. It's also called the Midgard Serpent. Now,
right.
This is Norse. Okay, so it was a snake or a dragon who lived in the ocean that surrounds Midgard. Now, the Midgard was the visible world.
Yep.
Okay. Now, his body's enormous, obviously, and it forms a circle around the entire middle. He has 3 children. No, sorry, he doesn't have 3 children. He's one of 3 children. Now, Loki. Everyone knows. Sorry, Loki. Everybody knows who Loki is these days, thanks to Marvel, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I think some people knew he was beforehand, but mainly because of that.
Yeah. Well, he got together with the giantess Angrboda. I'm not sure that's said right, but yeah. And had 3 children. And he is one of them.
Okay.
As well as Hel and Fenrir. Now, Fenrir we link to werewolves.
Okay.
Thanks to Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So, Thor is his enemy.
We know Thor is,
We know Thor is with his big hammer. The 2 battles between them are accounted in the Eddas. Now, Thor fishes for Jormungand, fails to pull him up, only when the giant Hymir, terrified that this will bring about Ragnarok.
Ragnarok.
Clearly, I haven't quite got used to Norse yet.
If you start watching Marvel, you'll know these names. Even Ragnarok.
But I so don't.
Yeah.
Right, he severs the line, and that sends the snake back down to the depths. When Ragnarok, sorry guys out there listening to this absolute nightmare of a pronunciation. Oh God. When it does arrive, Thor and the Midgard serpent are actually fated to slay each other.
Yep.
Now, Jormungand is also featured in the religion of the original Germanic tribes, as evidenced by his existence in the later pre-Christian religions of different branches of the Germanic people. So basically anything to do with like earthquakes or the earth being squeezed is to do with this giant snake that is wrapped around the middle of the earth.
Yeah.
Boom.
That's about the size of it.
I'm really glad that one's out of the way.
Yeah.
It's all I can say. I'm really bad at pronunciation.
Yeah, you need to catch up on Marvel just to get the pronunciations right.
Really kind of don't.
It's the easiest way of doing it, to be fair.
No. So who's Loki? What's he? I thought he was
he's the brother of Thor, but he's not birth. He wasn't Odin's son. He was taken during a battle between, I think it was the ice giants and Odin. And there was a baby left, and that was Loki because Odin took the baby.
I see.
So he was raised as Thor's brother.
Well.
There you go.
That is what you learned today on the Paranormal Concept Show.
Yep. To be fair, I think that's probably what you've learned.
Well, this is true. Yeah. Okay, everybody. That's what I've learned. Not being a Marvel fan at all. I thought that Loki was the guy who had powers and stuff, like trickster.
Yes, he has.
He was
Yeah.
like a trickster kind of spirit, isn't
He was, yeah, but I think it was all learned on Asgard.
Oh, okay. Right, so there you go, everybody. There's your little bit of Marvel history linked in with
Yeah, there you
Jomungand,
go.
who is the giant snake that encircles the middle of the world that Thor tried to capture, but, wasn't able to. But in Ragnarok, God,
Ragnarok.
Ragnarok, they are destined to kill each other.
Right, okay.
Fabulous. So we've covered quite a lot already in regard to snake mythology. When you think about the story of the serpent in the Garden of Eden, Lilith, based in your subconscious archetypal types kind of thing, which comes through in your sleep paralysis and your, you know, archetypal types, and then going into St. Patrick, banishing snakes being another word for heathen in that term, really. They think that snakes not being native to Ireland anyway, through to Jomungand, or whatever his poxy name was, the giant snake that's around Midgard snake. We're going to call it Midgard snake. I can't say it, even though it's written in front of me. I still can't say it. The pronunciation of that. So where are we at so far with your thoughts on this snake mythology? Because it's always coming up as bad and not good and evil and crappy and horrible.
Well, I think snakes have always been classed as bad and evil and stuff. I mean, look at Harry Potter as well. The Slytherin house is obviously to do with snakes,
Yeah.
and they portray the bad side or the dark side of magic. Even in like Disney cartoons and stuff, you always had the snake was the baddie. Jungle Book, for
Yeah.
example, the snake Ra or Car or
And
whatever his
Robin
name was.
Hood.
Yeah, he was more of like serving King John, wasn't he?
Yeah, but it was the snake in his ear, wasn't he?
Yeah,
It's his conscience, wasn't it?
yeah.
Yeah, I
So I
think
mean, even through that, it's always been portrayed as evil.
I think naturally as humans we do have a fear of snakes, deep. I mean, some people obviously don't, but I think a majority of people, when you think of snakes or if you come into presence of a snake, a reptile of some form, you do feel uneasy around them. There does seem to be some sort of natural we do seem to have sort of some inbuilt wariness of them.
I
We
think it's
do.
things that we don't like, and snakes is obviously one. Spiders are another one.
Do
That
you
are always
think
portrayed as bad and evil.
the spider though is right? There's a difference though, isn't there? Snakes are very good at disguising. They're classed as like like the
Yeah,
trickster and the bad and the evil, and part of that is to do with the fact of how well camouflaged they are.
yeah, but spiders
Yeah,
do the same.
Spiders in mythology are more about weaving the tapestry of life and pulling at the threads. So although
Yeah,
they have that predatory existence, because obviously they're the weavers, they can go and pluck whatever out of their web whenever they choose to, or wrap you up tight in that web.
yeah.
And obviously they're predators because they suck everything out of you. The spider is more to do with that, isn't it? It's more to do with that orchestration of your fate.
Yeah, but
yeah.
it can be quite manipulative as well, can't it? And I think that's why it's portrayed quite a lot again as bad. Again, going back to Harry Potter, it was a creature that wasn't good or wasn't bad. It was always out for itself.
But it never got involved until it got
No,
dragged into it, and then it wrapped you up in its
exactly.
its web,
Yeah,
effectively. Whereas if you just let it be, it will weave its fates out as need be. It's when you try
yeah, but
it's when you try to um mess with the fates.
it's about how it's portrayed, and it
Exactly.
was portrayed as maybe being on the dark side, unlike the Cornish pixie when you're like, oh, isn't that cute?
I think even with Greek mythology, with Arachnid, it's it is about weaving the fates and
Mm.
bringing in that, whereas the snake is always right. So you've got one of weaving the fates and trusting the fates of how
Yeah.
your life will go, but with the snake, it's more that trickery and deception that
Yeah.
comes through with the snake, and partly I think that's to do with the the mythology. I mean, when we go into the
Mhm.
second half of the show, we're going to look at a few more snake kind of mythologies, which
Yeah.
gives you an idea again of the higher belief systems that are
Mhm.
linked to the snake. So on that note, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be back right after this.
Hello, Harry Price here. If there's nothing me and my friends enjoy more here on the other side, it is to sit back and relax and listen to the Paranormal Concept Show, right here on the PAUK radio network. Broadcasting a plethora of interesting and informative content for all your paranormal needs. Find them across social media to keep up to date with forthcoming shows and all their other adventures. Hello, is there anybody there?
Welcome back to the Paranormal Concept Show, exclusive to the Paranormal UK radio network. Now, before the break, we were talking all about snake mythologies, and so far we've covered Norse, Christianity, saints. We've covered all sorts of weird and wonderful things, but we can't go much further in this little delve into the snake mythology without having a look at Medusa.
Oh,
That's
yes.
right.
The famed Medusa. Is she the one that had all the snakes in her hair?
She did. I think I might rock this look, actually.
Mhm.
You go for it, girl.
I think that might be my new hairstyle. Now, she is, this is Greek mythology, obviously, one of the trio of the Gorgon sisters. She was the only sister who was not immortal. And she is obviously famed for her snake hair and her gaze that can turn any who look upon her to stone.
Oh,
I love
Nice.
it, right? So, legend states that Medusa was, should I say, this beautiful priestess of Athena. So that was her goddess.
Yeah.
Now she had taken her vow of celibacy. Okay.
yeah.
But apparently she had an affair with Poseidon.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
So Athena punished her and she turned her into this horrible hag with the snake hair. Her skin turned to a greenish hue, beautiful, and this unfortunate gaze that turns anybody to stone.
Mhm.
Now, Perseus, as we know, was sent on a quest to kill Medusa, right? So he was able to defeat the Gorgon by lopping off her head, and he could only do that because he had that highly polished shield
Yeah, that's
reflection
right.
thing.
Mhm.
Yeah. So then later on, Perseus then used the head as a weapon to turn his enemies to stone.
Yeah. It
Right.
was the Kraken, wasn't it?
Now, the image of Medusa's head was actually placed on Athena's armor. So when you see Athena on her shield, she should have an image of Medusa.
Right.
Okay.
So let's look into this a little bit deeper. She was one of the three Gorgon sisters. Her sisters were Zetheno and Urael. And Gaia is sometimes said to be the mother of Medusa.
Right.
There are other sources. There are varying variations of this depending on where it is,
Mm.
right? So it is generally believed she was born at sea, and the poet Hesiod wrote that Medusa lived close to the Hesperides. Oh my God, I'm starting to babble. Hesperides in the Western Ocean near Sarpedon.
Right.
But Herodotus said her home was near Libya.
Right.
Okay. She's considered to be unmarried, although she did have a little affair with Poseidon. And one account actually says she married Perseus.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so there's varying accounts of this. As a result of her doing the deed with Poseidon, she is said to have birthed Pegasus, the winged horse.
Oh, okay. That's where he comes into it then.
And Chrysaor, the hero of the golden sword.
Mm.
Now, some say that she birthed those from Poseidon. Others say that they sprang up when her head was severed.
Okay.
Now, she hasn't got any known temples, but the Artemis temple in Corfu depicts Medusa in an archaic form. Now, she is shown as an actual symbol of fertility with a belt of snakes.
Oh, right. Yeah. At
Mm,
least the snake theme is kept.
it is.
Yeah.
Now, there are various references to Medusa. You've got Hyginus, Hesiodon, you've got Aeschylus, Dionysius, Scytobrachion, Herodotus, and there's some even Roman authors of Ovid and Pindar that you'll see stories about Medusa from. Now, she's obviously depicted multiple times in artwork, but usually only her head is shown.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So varying features, should we say, come up. So she's said to have tusks in some, snakes for hair. She always has snakes for hair. She has fangs, the forked tongue. Some she has a forked tongue, some she doesn't. Bulging eyes, and she's usually considered to be quite ugly. Although previously, before she was organized, as it were, before she was like, cursed,
Yes.
she was a beauty. So as you are so beautiful, you are so ugly.
Mhm.
Right.
Okay. So again, you've got lots of different things coming through on that one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like the more monstrous she is how monstrous her acts were, depending on the tale that's being depicted. But the actual, nowadays, the image of Medusa is supposed to be protective, warding off anything that should not come into your spectrum. Maybe I
Okay.
should get one above my door.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I thought you had a crystal Medusa.
I sold it.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yep. I had two different ones. I had a labradorite and a fluorite, and they both sold quite quickly because this mythology of Medusa is incredibly powerful in regards to, as say, it's a protection thing. If you don't want something to come in, you turn it to stone, you banish it.
Right.
And Medusa has that power to, the mythology of Medusa brings that through to incorporate into your workings of that. So she is incredibly powerful. Totem to work with when you're looking to turn something to stone to stop it from affecting you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, nowadays we think of Medusa when we think of things like Clash of the Titans,
Yeah.
Percy Jackson and the Olympians.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do like the Percy Jackson movies.
Mm-hmm. And she is also a mythical figure. She appears in all sorts of things, even video games apparently, and role-playing games.
Yeah.
And she's designed as an
Well, I can
antagonist.
understand role-playing games.
Yeah, she's designed, she's actually an antagonist because there's another story that she said she was more beautiful than Athena. And Athena was like, I don't think so. And cursed her in that way as well. So there's
Yeah.
lots of different mythologies that built up to, for the reason she got changed into what she ended up as. She was always this beautiful, virginal priestess that ended up being, this ugly snake-headed gorgon that turns
Yeah.
things into stone. So when you think of it in that term, it's, even if you think of Versace, the symbol of Versace is a Medusa head,
Yeah.
right? And that she was chosen because she represents beauty, art, and philosophy.
Right.
Think on things. You know what I mean? You know that of evolution. Don't let
Yeah.
it change you in that way.
Yeah.
She's quite a big figure, and in spiritual practice, she does have a lot of use, as it were, coming through. You find different mythologies that resonate with the intention that you're setting, and Medusa is one of those.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I have not a cat's any chance of
I'll just see that.
pronunciating the next lot, right?
Oh
So
dear.
please forgive me for the next one. We're
I
going
don't think I can help you out here.
the Mayans. We're going to the Masons. Now I'm going to call it Quetzalcoatl.
That's close. I've heard it pronounced like that. Yeah.
Now this was a tail feather of a bird, so it's a feathered serpent, they call it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now a feathered snake apparently. Now it occurred very, very early in the Teotihuacan civilization.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll go with that. In the 3rd to the 8th century, and this is on the Central Plateau. Now, he was supposed to have been a god of vegetation, so he's very closely linked to the rain god of Tlaloc.
Well done.
Because you think about the interconnectedness that we've talked about before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is where these gods and goddesses come from, basically. Now, the Nahua tribe, or the Nahua speaking tribe from the north, they immigrated, and as they immigrated, the Quetzalcoatl's cult went through some massive changes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Jesus,
This is one of the changes they made. They knew that you was going to do this show, so they changed all their names to ones you couldn't say.
exactly. So the
Yeah.
Toltec culture, which was from the 9th to the 12th century, now they were centered in the city of the Tula. They emphasized war and human sacrifice with the worship of heavenly bodies. Now, Quetzalcoatl became the god of the morning and evening star, and his temple was actually at the center of this ceremonial life in Tula. So he became the center of this worship of human sacrifice. Okay. So what is the morning star and the evening star, otherwise known as, do we know, boys?
Venus, isn't it?
That's right. It's Venus. What is Venus?
She's the goddess of love, isn't she?
She most certainly is. What symbol is the goddess, or what symbol does Venus scribe into the sky?
Flytrap.
Hexagon.
A pentagram.
Pentagram, sorry, yes. I knew it was one of those. Yeah, it when it does its transit across the sun. Takes about 6 months for it to achieve it, but it draws out, if you trace it, it draws out a pentagram.
In its geometrical form.
Yeah.
In its non-geometrical form, it's the flower of life.
Right, I see.
Okay. So we go down to fertility.
Mm-hmm.
Flower of life. Tree of life. See how it all starts to tie together?
And then Oak Island.
What?
Tree of Life.
It's not the Oak Island.
It's patterned. The rocks across it form the Tree of Life.
Okay.
All right. Take your word for it.
Okay. In Aztec times, Quetzalcoatl was revered as the patron of priests. He invented, allegedly, the calendar and books, and he was the protector of goldsmiths and other craftsmen. And this is where, we get into this planet Venus, this fertility, this inspiration, this bringing forth of ideas of growth. All of those things come with Quetzalcoatl.
Mm-hmm.
Now, his companion, right?
Yeah.
Because not only have you got the fertility, you've got the flip side of that as well, which is death, right?
Yeah.
He's duelled Quetzalcoatl. So, which obviously the sacrifice thing, out of death comes life.
Yeah.
Right. So he has a companion called Xolotl, who is a dog-headed god. Now, he was said to have descended to the underground hell of Mictlan to gather the bones of the ancient dead, and he anointed those bones with his blood and gave birth to men to inhabit the present. So we've got this, this Quetzalcoatl and this dog-headed god. I'm not going to try and say his name.
Mm.
This cyclical energy that goes on between the two, and that represents in the heavens as well with Venus. Now, one of the most important body of myths describes Quetzalcoatl as the priest king of Tula, the capital of the Toltecs. Now, they say he never offered human sacrifices as human victims, only snakes, birds, and butterflies.
All right.
Now, the god of night, Tezcatlipoca, expelled him from the city by performing feats of black magic. And then Quetzalcoatl went down to the coast of the divine water, i.e. the Atlantic Ocean, and basically burnt himself on a fire, emerged as the planet Venus, and ascended into the heavens.
Oh.
Right.
The interesting thing is the pyre he made for himself, the raft effectively, was made of snakes.
Yeah, there's a raft of serpents. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Cool. Yeah.
So this is where the legend of the victory of Tezcatlipoca over the feathered serpent, even Quetzalcoatl, is reflected in historical fact, because in the 1st century of the Toltec civilization, it was dominated by the Teotihuacan culture, and the pressures of the northern immigrants actually seized power from the priests.
Mm-hmm.
So Quetzalcoatl's defeat symbolizes the downfall of the classic theocracy.
Yeah.
And his voyage to the east could be connected with the invasion of the Yucatan by the
Right.
Itzar. Oh, Gabby got through that one, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Get through that unscathed.
Oh, and well, I don't know about unscathed. I think there's a lot of probably academics that are probably cringing at that all the way through.
Yeah. Anyone
hey-ho.
would think I'd done this research just to trip you up.
I know, they normally do, but I had to look at this one, right? So in addition to his guise as a plumed servant, he was also represented as a man with a beard. Now, the wind god, Ecatl, was also shown with a mask with 2 protruding tubes through which the wind blew, and a conical hat typical of the Huastec people of the east central Mexico.
Oh, good.
Okay, so in the Aztec capital, there was a round building. It was shaped that fitted the god's personality as the wind god. Okay, so circular temples were said to please the wind god.
Was the wind god called Heinz?
No, it was called Hecatl, because they offered no sharp objects to the wind, so it wasn't channeling the wind; it was allowing it to flow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Quetzalcoatl was part of that worship.
All right.
Mm-hmm. Now, he also ruled over the days that bore the name Ecatl, wind. This is in their calendar, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah, so they had days of the week that had Ecatl in them, which meant wind, and Quetzalcoatl was ruled over that.
Right.
Ugh. He was the 9th of the 13 gods of the daytime hours. They had 13 hours a day, and he was actually listed as one of the first rank deities. Mm-hmm. Very venerated guy.
Yeah.
God. But he was a feathered serpent, and is now represented in the heavens above us by Venus.
Oh, that's nice.
Okay, so we're going to have a look at another mythology now. We're going to have a look at the Naga. Now, this means serpent in Sanskrit. It is a mythological creature and covers Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism.
Oh, Jainism, yes.
Mm-hmm. It's half human, half cobra. Now, with this particular mythology, they're like, it again, you've got that double standard thing going on, because they are considered dangerous, but also beneficial. They live in an underground kingdom called the Nagaloka.
Right.
Or otherwise known as the Pataloka.
Oh, these the these are little people that live in the locker on Men in Black, wasn't it?
Oh no.
They lived in locker.
No, they're not snakes.
Oh, they were little people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Legend has it that when these little Naga creatures overpopulated the earth, their creator Brahma sent them to live underground and were only allowed to come out to bite those who were truly evil or those who were destined to die prematurely.
Ah.
They're associated with rivers, lakes, seas, wells, excuse me, and other waters, and they are known to be guardians of hidden treasure. Reminds me a little bit of dragons, this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see the dragon sort of motif sort of peering through there, can't you?
Mm-hmm. Now, they can take any form. So they're shapeshifters.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not, if you come across them in real life, you're not going to
You're not gonna know.
necessarily, basically. They are demigods. And they have snakes that form the garland, anklets, and amulets of the most powerful god in the Hindu pantheon, Lord Shiva. Now, the gods Bhairava and Mahakala, they receive the protection and decoration from snakes.
Right.
Okay, so this is all linked to the Nagas. The 1,000-headed Naga, not one you want to cross on a dark
No,
night.
yeah, you come across that in a dark alley.
Her name is Ananta. She actually protects Kali, who is the Hindu goddess of destruction. Okay.
Oh, I know Carly.
You're going to bring Indiana Jones into the room, aren't you?
Absolutely. Yeah, why not?
Jeepers.
Yeah.
Now, the gods are protected by the Nagas and even rest on them. So Nagas are protection. So if you see a snake across a door, a window, or temple walls or whatever, then that's generally what they're indicating, the Nagas in this particular belief system.
Right.
So they are like the guardians of control, because they take out, all those sort of things. Excuse me. I'm very tired tonight.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
also at the base of the spine. Now, remember, we go right back to the beginning where I talked about the Kundalina. That means snake. And that's the serpent power within the human body. It is depicted as a coiled snake, which you can awaken, and it rises up, right up through your back, through your spine, going right through into your neck, into your nerve endings on the back. This is tantric.
Mm-hmm.
When we talk tantric, this is what we're doing, which is incredibly powerful.
That's
and
what steam does, isn't it?
I said to do, yeah. It's incredibly powerful, actually. And actually, it's quite common that when you activate your Kundalini energy, it is followed with orgasm.
Yes, I've heard that. Yeah, apparently you can do it for hours, can't you?
Not the orgasm.
No, but sort
That's
of
just
like
like a byproduct of the awakening
it's
of
the
the
sex
tantra.
act, isn't it,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. Yeah, you can control the orgasm, can't you?
You can control it to a degree, but it is the awakening of that energy that is creating that. But yeah, it is incredibly powerful. I'm not going to lie. Quite nice. So Nagas were born from Kashyap, and his third wife, Kadru, gave birth to the great serpents, the Nagas. Now, when apparently, according to legend, she gave birth to 1,000 Nagas. There's some famous ones.
All right.
I've never heard of any of these, to be fair. The Sesha, Vasuki, Takshaka, Anant, Kanwai, Kalia, Kartotak, Padma, Aswata, Mahapadma, Shank, Pingal, and Kulik.
Right.
Yeah, I've never heard of them.
Yeah, very well known, aren't they? Yeah.
So obviously, when she's giving birth to this many baby Nagas, they become too populous, and they became a problem for humans. at the end of the day. So they got cursed by their grandfather, Brahma, and with annihilation, but they begged for mercy. So they were sent to the Patala, the underworld. That's the lowest realm in the underworld, the Naga Loka. However, they were also commanded to come back to bite the evil or those, predestined to die prematurely, right? So that is also why they're a symbol of protection. So evil cannot come inside. Now, you see them in lots of jewelry and forms of art, and the Naga was used as a rope to churn the oceans during the saga Mantha. So this was when Lord Shiva carried out his cosmic dance of creation. They were churning up the oceans.
Okay.
Now, in regards to cosmology, the Kamadhana, the cow, was born, and Nandi the bull. They drank Vasuki, who was a Naga, right?
Yeah.
Venom to save Lord Shiva and all of creation. Oh my God. Takshaka is the chief of snakes and a very unusual Naga. He appears there's an epic, and his fame spreads even into Chinese and Japanese mythology.
Yeah.
Right.
Female Nagas are known as Nagis.
That's about right, isn't it?
Or
Yeah, sounds about
Naginis.
bloody right. Yeah.
Or Naginis. They are considered serpent royalty.
Okay.
Okay. And serpent is a generic name for a mythical snake or a snake symbol of any species. Now, Naginis are known for their striking beauty and basically a part of the ruling family in Indochina.
Right.
Now, there is a festival that celebrates the birth of the Nagas and their mother Kadru. They were born in Panchami, which is the 5th day of Shravran, the lunar month that falls in July and August, basically. And this Hindu festival is still celebrated today. This is the festival where cobras are worshipped. Okay,
Right.
people make offerings of lotus flowers in silver bowls, milk and sweeties, including a special rice pudding. And 5 Nagas especially are honoured, which is the Pingala, Karkotaka, Ta'al, Ananta, and the Vasuki.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Oh my goodness, I'm glad we got through those because that was a little hard. So, right, let's talk about Paul's favourite, the Arubus. Ouroboros, even.
Yeah.
That one. That is the oldest mystical symbol in the world. And it's basically, this is where like the snake eating the snake, like the snake's head is eating the snake's tail. So it's like a symbol of eternity, basically, I think it is. Now, the earliest record of the Ouroboros, God, was found in, I've got myself all of a jingle jangle after the last two we've had to cover, was found in the 1600s BC in ancient Europe. Okay, and it was used to document the Egyptians' understanding of the sun and was said to represent the travels of the sun disk.
Okay.
Okay. It can be found in the book of the Netherworld. Now, this was a funerary text that was found in the tomb of the young, the young King Tut in the 14th century.
Oh, right.
Now, Ra, God, King, amazing head god, Ra, is the sun.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he symbolized as the sun, and he was said to be pushed across the sky by a scarab.
Right. That's a
beetle,
isn't it?
That's the beetle. Yeah. It's a dung beetle.
Yeah.
That journey, the journey is the Ouroboros. That's the one. I can't say it. Now, he has a partnership with Osiris in the underworld. So the two serpents that appear in the text holding their tails in their mouths is basically symbolic of the cyclical nature of life. No clear beginning, no end.
Right.
However, the word actually comes from the Greeks. So it's a combination of ura, which means tail, and Bora, which means food. So basically, it's roughly translated to tail eater.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, this symbol, this facility of symbol, is interpreted in so many different ways across so many different cultures. So it's said to represent the difficult questions in life.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there are connections between the Arubas and the universe itself, and the importance of recognition of that cycle of life, the mysteries of the universe, and your place within it.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, when we talked about Gnosticism with William Parry,
Mm-hmm.
this symbol comes up in Gnosticism.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is an ancient religious idea, Gnosticism, and it deals with knowledge and the spirit realm.
Yeah.
Okay, so obviously the symbol then becomes connected to this particular belief system because it's such an old symbol, and so it must have a connection. Okay, and
Yeah.
basically it's about overcoming ignorance, and the Erebus is a step in that right direction. It's the
Yeah.
concept of eternity and the very essence of the world itself, that cyclical energy that you would go back to the birth, death, resurrection.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, let's talk about alchemy.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, one of the most famous is the Chrysopoeia of Cleopatra. Now, this is a famous alchemical text that was written by an Egyptian philosopher, author, and alchemist. Now, the author's name has been lost. We don't know the author's name, but we do know that she is not the same person as Cleopatra VII, the last ruler of Egypt.
The last one. No, it's not the same person. Okay.
No. Now, Patra, the alchemist, was known to have published the Chrysopoeia of Cleopatra and drew the Erebus associated with it, which is the
Okay.
serpent eating its tail. Now, the serpent, right, now think about this one. Serpent is half white and half black.
Mm-hmm.
Yin and yang, isn't it?
And its text translates that the all is one.
Okay.
Okay, so this is again going back to that interconnectedness, that evidence in life.
Mm.
So when you then translate that over into Chinese and Japanese mythology, you've got the yin and the yang symbol,
Mm.
and that's basically a depiction of the Erebus.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, it's not coincidental that this symbol is part of alchemy. Right, Chrysopoeia is a word that indicates that a base metal has undergone transmutation. So there was always that wanting to change something into pure gold, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, it's traditionally
This
the
is the
thought, isn't it?
exactly. This is the basic concept that is connected to the philosopher's stone.
Yeah.
Right now, the philosopher's stone was always about immortality and rejuvenation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is, think of Harry Potter.
Yeah.
That's why Voldemort wanted it and all that. So you're exceeding your limitations within your human body.
Mm.
Yeah, you're exceeding physics and, beyond, by changing something, transmutating it, but
Yeah.
bringing that concept of immortality and rejuvenation through as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And this was embodied by the Ouroboros.
Yeah.
Now, Sir Thomas Browne. Do you know who Thomas Browne is?
Thomas
Yeah.
Brown. No, enlighten.
I don't know.
He was an alchemist.
He was.
All right.
Yeah.
He wrote a medical treatise, so he was a doctor, entitled A Letter to a Friend. And he basically said he was tiring of the circle of life and death and the connection to the principles of the Ouroboros. he understood the concept, but he was tired of that concept.
Mm.
His
Right.
belief system wasn't a cycle of life in respect of never ending, because he couldn't fix or transmutate within the physical. He's restricted in regard to the human body.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of
So
a spiritual thing, isn't it?
it's a
So
very spiritual
yeah.
concept, incredibly spiritual, that that evolution through the phases, the transmutations you
something
go through.
exactly. It's something that's never ending. So basically, you're born, you die, you get born again, you die, you're born again, you
Yeah, it's
die,
a never
and
ending
it's just
circle. Yeah.
exactly, and that's why that particular symbol was used in the never-ending story.
Yeah, that's right. Now we
Mm.
know all about the Theosophical Society, don't we? We came across the
Yeah,
Theosophical Society in various
We have.
research.
Miss Helena Blavatsky, isn't it?
We love a bit of Helena Petrovna Blavatsky.
That's the one.
Colonel Henry Steele Alcott and William Kwan Judge basically founded the society in the 17th century. Yeah, and they were
Yeah.
basically founded it as seekers of truth.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously that includes a lot of spiritual theologies, we'll call it. Now, they had a very alternative approach to spiritualism, but they also looked at a lot of mystic and occult practices. So their seal featured the ankh inside the Star of David, which was below a swastika. These three symbols were themselves surrounded by the Ouroboros.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
This combination of symbology was ultimately outlaying the approach of the Theosophical Society. And it was that struggle for the truth and the understanding of the interconnectedness of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it led them down a lot of different paths. And so we've come across the Theosophical Society and various other topics we've covered.
No,
And
they
they didn't dismiss anything.
Yeah.
Look how they took to the photographs of the fairies in the Cottingley Fairy scandal.
Well, yeah, they're very
Exactly.
broad, open-minded, weren't they?
Factual
Yeah.
fiction show, guys. Check that out.
Yeah.
Now, oh dear, now it is one of the most intriguing connections. Looking at the serpent as a way of explaining the interconnectedness of the universe. There are so many legends that incorporate the Ouroboros into their oral traditions. Now, it's also supposed to be referenced as the Milky Way. Think of
Yeah.
the Milky
Okay.
Way in the sky. It's circular, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
So
a
we've got,
disc. Yeah.
again, we've got this reflection of what's above as below.
Yeah.
As above, so below. And what is
Yeah.
that?
Um.
The tree of life
Yeah.
Mm.
that comes into the Garden of Eden.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm dropping the mic all over the place tonight.
You are, aren't you?
Dropping my pronunciations all over the place tonight as well, everybody. Okay, so the serpent of light that is lived in the heavens, and the serpent resembles the Ouroboros. The location is obviously a reference to the Milky Way galaxy, and those wonder if, the connection of this symbol to space means that the ancestors could answer questions that we don't know the answer to today. So much has been lost, hasn't it?
It has, hasn't
Yes.
it? Yeah.
Now, lastly, but not leastly, the compound benzene was discovered by a chemist called August Kekulé. Now, he was studying atom structure and trying to find answers, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
He took a nap by his fireplace, and in his dream, going back to the archetypal types and answers from deep within your subconscious,
Mm-hmm.
and belief systems.
Hmm.
He dreamt that he was exploring the image of atoms working together, and eventually they appeared to move and writhe like snakes. Then one of the snakes grabbed its tail in its mouth, prompting Kekule to awaken. Now, this vision of the Ouroboros inspired Kekule to continue working out his equations until he proved the form of the benzene. Boom!
Absolutely. And while you was talking about Ouroboros, there wasn't even one reference to Red Dwarf there.
Mhm.
You got to acknowledge Red Dwarf.
I don't know about that. I haven't really watched it. I watched a bit of it. I like the cat.
In one episode, there was Dave Lister. He's the last human alive anywhere. And he found out that he was his own dad, thus creating the Ouroboros. Because when he was a baby, he was found under a pool table with the words Ouroboros on the side. And they split the word Ouroboros up, basically. So it said Our Rob or Ross, because they didn't know what name to call him. That was his outlook on that one. But it was the whole circle of life.
Hmm.
The human race would never die out because of him.
Was he immortal?
No, he was his own dad.
What?
Exactly.
Oh God,
Right.
it's one of those concepts.
It is. It's one of those. Yeah, obviously they muck about with time and space and all that, but yeah, he found out in this episode that he was his own dad. So when he was old, Lister, he put the baby underneath the pool table with a Ouroboros on the side. And he grew up thinking that it said our Rob or Ross because they didn't know what to call him.
Mhm.
So they called him Lister. Don't get that, but so yeah, the human race would never die out, thus completing the circle.
Okay.
Very profound in a comical sort of way.
Do we know what the fear of? I'm going back. I'm changing the subject here. Do we know what the fear of snakes is called?
I don't know. I feel I should know, but no, it eludes me at the moment.
Okay, it's called ophidiophobia.
No, I wouldn't have got that.
No, I wouldn't have got that either. It's the overwhelming fear of snakes. Now, it is called a specific phobia, and is actually a type of an anxiety disorder.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh.
And when we think about everything that we've talked about tonight, no wonder there's anxiety linked to snakes. Quite frankly, they're a bit hideous. Okay. Now, they think ophidiophobia may be associated with herpetophobia, which is actually a fear of all reptiles.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I touched on that earlier, didn't I? When I said there seems to be an inherent sort of fear or sort of wariness of snakes and reptiles that humans sort of tend to sort of find, sort of give out,
Yeah.
You ask many people, I mean, if somebody come with a bucket of snakes and threw them over you, you probably wouldn't be too happy about it.
No, definitely not. Now, they say that this is something that's hardwired into the brain. It's
Yeah.
not something that's, you know, I mean, it's actually a hardwired thing. Some people can overcome it, but there's actually something within all of us that makes us very wary and
Like an
distrustful.
instinct.
Yeah, an instinctual thing. And that could be just because the jumpy factor. You know what I mean? Like, where you think some of them are so well disguised on the ground. There's a really well-known pareidolia effect photo that's shared, and it's basically a snake, and it's to do with the fight or flight scenario. So, you know, what do? You see something in front of you, you think it's a snake, you leap back, and then you take a second look, so you've got your flight, which is woohoo, jump back, and then your fight instinct is then to like look at it again. So you've got the two instincts going in it, and because the snake can trigger this, that's why they think it's, or the thought it's a snake. Your instinct is telling you, sorry, excuse me, it's a snake. Yeah. That's why it's hardwired. It's deep with your brain. But then having a look at all the mythology we've looked at and all the negative connotations that have been put onto the snake, the poor little snake, it's hardly a surprise. But I think as a culture, we're sort of coming away from the primitive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you not think?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean,
It's incredibly interesting. But we shall see. So what's your fears? We've got 15 minutes to go. Let's talk about fears. What are your fears?
Me.
Deep fears I'm talking about, not everyday fears.
I don't know, to be honest. I don't like the dentist, if that counts. I actually get physically ill when I walk past a dentist office.
Oh, right. Yeah,
Weird.
well, a lot of people don't like a dentist. It's sort of a place, you know, and if you didn't have to go, you would. You wouldn't, would you? I mean,
exactly.
It's sort of one of those. I mean, but
I suppose maybe falling
Yeah.
great distances. That'd be one, I think.
Yeah, I would say falling. I think that's where it comes from, with my fear of like escalators and things like that. You know what I mean? And edges. If anything's too close to the edge.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't know. Is it falling or is it a fear of hitting the ground hard?
Don't know.
Yeah.
I'd go with falling.
Yeah, no, I'd go with hitting the ground hard.
Well, that's the end.
Exactly. Falling would be no problem. That's easy to do.
I don't know.
Yeah. Anyone can fall.
Yeah, that's it. That's the easy bit. Hitting the ground and getting up afterwards is the hard bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd go with that, hitting the ground.
So you wouldn't try anything like parachuting or anything like that?
No.
I think I would like to, but I think when I get up there, someone would have to push me out of the plane.
I'm with you, Paul. Yeah, I'm with you, Paul, actually, with that.
You know, I can sort of, you know, you think about it. Yeah, I'll go for a parachute jump. And a lot of people do them for charity, but sort of once you're sitting in the doorway with your legs hanging over the side, sort of, and someone's shouting
totally
1, 2, 3.
They're going go 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 on. It's like you're in the way now, and you're still sitting.
The only way I possibly could do it if it was done with a tandem.
Yeah.
When you have an instructor strapped to your back.
Yeah.
Have you ever held a snake?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, I've held a snake.
So have I.
They just feel like slow worms, and I used to deal with them loads.
They're quite warm as well, aren't they? Really?
Yeah, yeah.
They're not what you think. Your brain tells you it's going to feel one way, and then once you get a hold of it, you think, well, actually, don't feel like that at all.
Yeah, I know. A lot of people think they're slimy, but they're not. They're not at all. I used to deal with slow worms, and they're exactly the same. Snakes are cold-blooded, aren't they? And that's why they need heat. So when they feel warm, they like the warmth. So
they do.
Yeah.
It is when we've, looking at everything we've looked at tonight, there's a very big spiritual practice behind them. And they used to depict medicine, but we'll think about where venom, we got the antidote for venom actually comes from a snake.
Yeah.
Well, you treat snake bites with anti-venom, don't you? With venom from other snakes, which sort of counteracts. I mean, yeah, that's a funny one. That and that it works like that, but it does.
With the symbol for like any medical practice, with it looks like a snake wrapped around a pole.
Yeah.
But it isn't. It's not a snake at all. It's a worm. And it derives from Africa, where they used to, this worm would be in your skin. And what they do, they put in this stick, and the worm will cling to the stick, and they twist it, so the worm comes out with the stick. and the worms wrap
Right.
around the stick, and that's what that symbol is.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
Okay. So
but a lot of people do think it's a snake, and it's not.
it's the worm.
Yeah.
Mm.
So, what did you say earlier, Kerry? Which clothing designer uses the Gorgons?
Versace.
Oh, does it? Yeah, because you've got that other one that uses the crocodile, don't you? Which is a reptile.
Lacoste
Lacoste.
and whatnot.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think we have come to the end of the show now, guys.
That was good.
Okay.
That was quick.
Have we any news?
Have we got any news, Richard?
No, just the usual bit of sort of, we've got the
Housekeeping.
website, we've got the social media links, and everything seems to be okay. If you want to drop us a message, there's plenty of ways to do so.
Yeah, you
Even
go
via,
to the website.
either via the website or via social media, we will pick it up.
Yeah, and the website's www.paranormalconcept.com.
And on that note, say goodnight, my boys.
Good night, my boys.
Good night, my boys.